Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Trumbore with your nightly review for Thursday, March 7. It is 4:02 p.m. Eastern Time, and we hit new highs again. Dow Jones finished up 33 at 14,329. The S&P finished up 3 points to 1544, so it is still 21 points shy of its high. And NASDAQ finished up 9 to 3232. Tokyo's Nikkei was up again, 0.3% to 11,968. London's FTSE up 0.3%, Paris up 0.5%, Frankfurt up 0.2%. In Germany, January factory orders were down 1.9% from December, far worse than expected. China's Shanghai Composite down 1%, gold 1577, oil 91.55, and the 10-year U.S. Treasury 1.99%. Ahead of tomorrow's important jobs number, weekly jobless claims figure came in at a positive for the market 340,000. I also note that someone I've cited in my Week in Review column over the years, Ivy Zellman, the best analyst on the housing market, housing sector, said today on CNBC she's as bullish as she's ever been on housing. So that is significant. President Obama had his dinner Wednesday night with a dozen Republican senators and was having lunch with Congressman Paul Ryan today at the White House. There won't be any immediate breakthroughs, but the optics are good for both sides. The senators called the meeting constructive and spoke of a sincere discussion. It's going to take months, however, to put together a long-term deficit reduction plan, if one can be crafted. Paul Ryan said, "I think this whole thing will come to a crescendo this summer, and we're going to have to talk to each other to get an agreement about how to delay a debt crisis, the debt ceiling." That issue will come back. How to save this country from a fiscal train wreck that's coming. Obama is pointedly skipping Republican leaders, Mitch McConnell and John Boehner, and some Republicans wonder just how sincere the sudden outreach program is. One attendee at the Wednesday dinner, my favorite Republican senator, Oklahoma's Tom Coburn, said he's never spent any time reaching out. The question is it starting to change because there are bad poll numbers, or is it because he really decided he's going to lead and solve some of the problems of the country? Meanwhile, the House approved a 6-month spending bill by a 267 to 151 vote margin that had some Democratic support, 53 of them. 14 Republicans voted against. The bill provides enough to fund the government through September 30th and lock in the sequester spending cuts while giving defense more flexibility in setting priorities. Both chambers, however, must agree to a final version to avert a government shutdown on March 27th. So that's one deadline. Next week, a separate issue. Both Republicans and Democrats unveil budgets for the fiscal year beginning October, with Paul Ryan offering a plan to balance the budget in 10 years, revamping Medicare being a key. Senate Budget Committee Chairman Patty Murray, Democrat of Washington, has indicated Democrats will target tax loopholes to raise revenue, protect entitlement benefits, and echo President Obama's fairness theme and playing down the debt. It's going to be the first time since 2009 that Senate Democrats will produce and approve a budget resolution. Remember, they don't get paid unless both chambers come up with a budget by April 15th. Murray said on Tuesday there's no good reason, for example, that taxpayers currently subsidize millionaires more when they purchase a second home or a yacht than they do middle-class families purchasing their first homes. And why should a hedge fund manager pay a lower tax rate on his income than a soldier, police officer, or a teacher? Across the pond, as expected, the European Central Bank left its benchmark interest rate at 0.75%, a record low. ECB President Mario Draghi said later in 2013 economic activity should gradually recover, supported by a strengthening global backdrop and our accommodative monetary policy stance. Uncertainty caused by the stalemate in last month's Italian election, where anti-austerity parties won more than half the vote, has renewed concern that the euro area may struggle to overcome the sovereign debt crisis and exit recession. And the ECB today predicted the 17-nation eurozone will shrink 0.5% this year, more than the 0.3% contraction they forecast 3 months ago. Recall the European Commission is at 0.3% contraction. The estimate for 2014 growth was reduced to 1% from 1.2%. The central bank also cut its 2014 inflation projection to 1.3%. So Draghi said confidence was returning to the euro area despite the chaotic Italian election. Quote, markets understand that we live in democracies. Fragmentation is not worsening, it's actually improving, it's receding. He's nuts. But short term, the lemmings are following his words. The yield on Italy's 10-year bond fell to 4.62% from 4.9% on February 26. However, remember, it was 4.17 the morning of the election. Spain's 10-year hit a 2-year low today at 4.90% from 5.37 on February 26. But again, Draghi's in dreamland. He said at one point today, quote, much of the fiscal adjustment Italy went through will continue going on automatic pilot. All this happens in a general environment where we have many signs that confidence in the financial markets of the euro area is returning. But after Luigi Bersani's flip yesterday to the anti-austerity camp, only Mario Monti in Italy wants to stay the course. Bersani, Berlusconi, and that unfunny comedian Beppe Grillo all want to dump the program favored by Brussels and Germany and Draghi. So it's all a bunch of lies. Well, Draghi did note one truth today in talking of the labor picture in the region. Unemployment is a tragedy, he said, and youth unemployment is an even bigger tragedy. Concerning North Korea, the UN Security Council voted unanimously to impose tougher sanctions on North Korea for conducting a nuclear test in violation of previous prohibitions. This, as Pyongyang's Foreign Ministry office issued a statement on the official news agency quote, "Since the United States is about to ignite a nuclear war, we will be exercising our right to preemptive nuclear attack against the headquarters of the aggressor in order to protect our supreme interest." The spokesman for the foreign ministry accused the U.S. of leading efforts to slap sanctions on North Korea. The statement said the new sanctions would only advance the timing for North Korea to fulfill previous vows of taking, quote, "powerful second and third countermeasures" against its enemies. Those measures haven't been specifically elaborated on. The statement also read, "We gravely warn that at a time when we cannot avoid a second Korean War, the UN Security Council, which served as the U.S. puppet in 1950 and made Korean people harbor eternal grudges against it, must not commit the same crime again. The new UN sanctions target illicit activity by North Korean diplomats, bulk transfers of cash by North Koreans, and banks and companies that may be funneling cash or materials to support the country's ballistic missile and nuclear weapons programs. China is now promising to inspect all cargoes bound to or from North Korea, which threatens Pyongyang's most important channel of trade, including the export of counterfeit money, drugs, and weapons, all major sources of revenue for Kim and his orcs. Additionally, North Korea has smuggled much of the technology and materials for its nuclear program through the enormous and ill-controlled Chinese industrial sector. That's according to Siegfried Hecker of Stanford University, the leading authority on Pyongyang's weapons program. But you can't just ignore North Korea's threats. In 2009, it said that it will not guarantee the legal status of 5 South Korean islands close to the disputed Korean border in the Yellow Sea, and then in late 2010, it shelled one of them, killing 4 people. South Korea has been criticized for an inadequate response to the 2010 shelling and now warns it will retaliate to any new attacks by targeting the, quote, command leadership, suggesting it might target Pyongyang directly. So a definite escalation in the war of words. The agreement on UN sanctions, the 4th round against the North, does appear to signal a new level of understanding between the US and China. President Xi Jinping has said he seeks a stable relationship, but I wouldn't go too far yet. China doesn't want the US to have a large presence in Asia, period. But it also has a lot to lose unless North Korea cools it. Once Xi is formally in charge, let's see what he says and does, both regarding North Korea and the dispute in the East China Sea between China and Japan. In an example of how the war in Syria can spiral out of control and impact its neighbors, Syrian rebels say they have seized a convoy of United Nations observers near the Golan Heights. The young man on video saying he was from the Martyrs of Yarmouk Brigade said the convoy would not be released until forces loyal to President Bashar Assad withdraw from a village a mile east of the ceasefire line with the Israeli Golan. The statement read, "If no withdrawal is made within 24 hours, we will treat them as prisoners," accusing them of collaborating with Assad's forces. The UN supervises a 1974 ceasefire agreement between Syria and Israel. The peacekeepers are Filipino. Meanwhile, the UN said that the number of Syrians who have fled their homeland has officially exceeded 1 million. About half the refugees are children, most younger than 11. I mean, understand that. Over 500,000 are these are refugees, under the age of 11. With 1 million people in flight, millions more displaced internally, and thousands of people continuing to cross the border every day, Syria is spiraling toward full-scale disaster, said the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. The international humanitarian response capacity is dangerously stretched. This tragedy has to be stopped. In Mali, French President François Hollande said that at the beginning of April, there will be a decrease in the number of French soldiers in Mali as African forces take over. French forces backed by Chadian soldiers are now chasing militants into a mountain range near the border with Algeria, though France did lose its 4th soldier in the nearly 2-month campaign in an ambush, but thankfully just 4 soldiers in a remarkable campaign by the French and the soldiers from Chad in particular. Finally, sausages, ham, bacon, and other processed meats appear to increase the risk of dying young, a study of 500,000 people across Europe suggests. It concluded diets high in processed meats were linked to cardiovascular disease, cancer, and early deaths. Researchers writing in the journal BMC Medicine said salt and chemicals used to preserve the meat may damage health. 1 in every 17 people followed in the study died. However, those eating more than 160 grams of processed meat a day, roughly 2 sausages and a slice of bacon, were 44% more likely to die over a typical follow-up time of 12.7 years than those eating about 1 slice of bacon. Professor Sabine Rohrmann from the University of Zurich told the BBC, however, stopping smoking is more important than cutting meat, but I would recommend people reduce their meat intake. The UK government recommends eating no more than 70 grams of processed meat or about 2 slices of bacon a day. That is not good for yours truly, because I plan on eating this full package of microwavable cooked bacon, all 15 slices. Could go down tonight. Ursula Ahrens. I love the name Ursula. From the British Dietetic Association, told the BBC, however, even good quality ham or sausages were still classed as processed meat, while homemade burgers using fresh meat were not. For most people, there's no need to cut back on fresh red meat. That's all for today. I'll be back with you on Monday. Read my Week in Review column at stocksandnews.com, posted early Saturday morning. Take care.